What they're not telling you about Kansas City? Well, this is what this video is all about. So before I get into all of the nitty-gritty, I am going to first tell you that I'm not going to talk about things like the sports teams and some of the activities around the city to do and just the museums and all of that. I'm not going to be talking about those things. I'm going to be talking about random things that you had no idea were even a thing here in Kansas City, or just something just to consider or solidify or even confirm that this city is for you. Now, I do think that I have a little bit of an interesting perspective in the sense that I grew up in a suburb called Leavenworth, Kansas. And if you have heard of the federal penitentiary, that is where the federal penitentiary is at. So this is where most of my life I grew up in, which is about 45 minutes away from the downtown area of Kansas City. And in my earlier years, we would move around a lot. My father is a pastor, and then I went to high school in Texas, but we moved back. Once I graduated from college, I even went to New York City to become a flight attendant. But I moved back to Kansas City, and this is where I've been for the duration of my adult life. As an adult, I've lived in multiple cities across the United States, but when I landed here, I just knew that there was something special about this city, and I've never actually thought to go anywhere else. So my perspective is, with all of the moving around that I've done and most of my life living in Leavenworth, Kansas, my perspective is kind of unique. I've lived in 3 cities that are on the Kansas side and 2 cities that are on the Missouri side of the entire Kansas City metropolitan area. And once I just figured out that this was home to me, I've never really considered moving anywhere else. And also too, just to give you some perspective, I've went through the single phase, I've went through single mom phase, I've went through homeschooling mom phase, the entrepreneurial phase, the married life phase, and now I'm in the fit phase over 50. So with all that being said, I can understand multiple aspects of a city, and I've experienced both sides of the state line, as well as living in several different other states. And so I wanted to just talk to you about 7 things that I have experienced and that I think that people don't talk about when they come to Kansas City as a place to plant their roots and live. Now, before I start, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Anita Cordell, and I'm a licensed real estate agent. I am licensed both on the Kansas side as well as the Missouri side, and I help people just like you buy, sell, relocate, and invest right here in our amazing city. And I'm inviting you to write in the comments below. There are certain aspects of things that I will cover, and if you wish that I had covered more, or in an area that you wish that I would cover in some of my videos, go ahead and make those comments below. Or if there's one of the things that I forgot to even explore a little bit farther, be sure and comment below, because the viewers will read those comments and it actually will inspire them and help them to make futuristic plans for their relocation desires. So let's get going. That is why you're here, right? The number one thing that people wish they would have known when they are moving to Kansas City is about the weather. Now, I will tell you this, that we get all 4 seasons. When it's springtime, you'll get rain. When it's summertime, it will get hot. When it's fall time, you will see beautiful trees all across the whole metropolitan area. And when it's winter time, you will see snow for the most part. But I will say this, that when it comes to winter time, I don't think that the winters are all that bad. In fact, I remember growing up and getting stuck in the downtown Kansas City area. There was this one winter storm that was so bad, and it was ice everywhere. My dad was slipping and sliding through the hills, and it was scary. But over time, I haven't experienced those bad storms. So if you are considering moving here and you're worried about the winter time, from the experience of somebody living here for a while, I can honestly say that the winters here aren't that bad. Sure, we get snow. In fact, at the time of this recording, it's supposed to snow tonight. But here's the thing, we are a seasonal city and you will see all 4 seasons here. When it comes to snow, though, that is one of the topics that people talk about. And in any given year, you'll never know how many snow days you'll get. Sometimes there are winters where you'll only get 1 day or 1 really hard snow. And then there's other winters where there might be 10 different snowstorms throughout that season. And another part of being in Kansas City is the fact that we do get tornadoes. And I have even done a whole entire video talking about the tornadoes here in the Kansas City metropolitan area and things to look for. Be sure and look for that link. It is down in the description below. If there's any other videos that I reference here in my video, be sure and look at the description below and I'll make sure that they are there. Now, another thing to note is that we are still on daylight savings time. And so it's a little bit unmotivating sometimes because it will get dark at about 5 o'clock, 5:30 when it's time for shorter days. And it gets really unmotivating and people don't like to get out and look at homes. And, you know, obviously I understand that because it's really dark and you want to be able to see what you're buying, right? So it does get a little inconvenient when people are looking for properties. And just so you know, that only lasts for a short amount of time. And then when the springtime starts and getting into the fall, we get sun a lot. In fact, I think that the last I checked, there's about 215 days that is really sunny here in the Kansas City metro area. But when it's daylight savings time, the days are shorter than a lot of times what people are used to. But let me tell you, when springtime comes and when summer comes, people are out and about and they come almost out of hibernating. In fact, people are so excited to get out and do activities. There's a lot of organizations that will start to have outdoor activities. In fact, I talk about some of these activities in other videos. And in fact, it's a way to cultivate relationships. And I see it all the time where people will develop relationships and there's singles groups and traveling women's groups and all kinds of Facebook groups to join here in Kansas City. Now, the second thing that you might not know and that just isn't spotlighted enough in my opinion is the fact that Kansas City is a really affordable place to live. Most of the things that I'm going to talk about in this video are things that people do as a lifestyle and it's really affordable. And I hear about other cities where somebody might spend $5,000 on a 1-bedroom apartment. But here, you'll be able to find a 1-bedroom apartment for sometimes around the $1,500 to $1,700 price point. And in other areas across the country, the average sales price of a 3-bedroom home is roughly about $1 million. But here in Kansas City, the average sales price is just right below $400,000 for a 4-bedroom home. When we're talking about coffee, say for instance, it costs about $5, $5.50 to buy a cup of coffee here, but I've heard other places it's $8 to buy a cup of coffee somewhere. Overall, I think Kansas City is a great place to explore, and if you come to Kansas City for just in general scoping out the land, you will be surprised. You're gonna want to move to a city that's not only affordable, but you get your more money for your buck. Whether you have a family or not, there is so much to do here. Now, number 3 on the list of things that people don't really talk about is the fact that, in my opinion, Kansas City doesn't really have its own DNA of the style of homes that are here. So when you look at New York, you will know that there's the brownstones that are in New York. Or if you go to Virginia, you'll think of the colonial style homes. Or if you think of San Francisco, you'll think of Victorian homes. However, when you think of Kansas City, there's not one style of home that creates a DNA structure for our city. I know it's a little silly thing, but it's just me being a real estate agent and trying to help people find their property and find the location that they want to live in. So for instance, some people will come into town and they will love Tudor style homes. Tudor style homes are a little niche in the Waldo and Brookside area, and yet you won't be able to find Tudor style homes outside of that area for the most part. In fact, if you like modern style homes, you'll want to go out into the suburbs and get those modern style homes, especially new construction. And then also too, we have a lot of raised ranches as well here. In pockets of our city, raised ranches are in every single neighborhood in certain price points. So again, I know it's a silly thing, but I do wish that Kansas City overall had kind of its own flavor of style of homes or its own DNA. But the good thing about it is if you have a specific style of home that you are looking to purchase and that's your desire, then it's easy to find the certain pockets where those styles are from. And by the way, if you want to talk more about real estate or talk more about the style of homes, there's a link in my description and it has a calendar link to go to, and it goes right to my calendar. You can set up a time to talk to me about your real estate wishes and goals, and we can go out and take a look at some of these houses. Okay, number 4 that people don't always know about when they're relocating to Kansas City, or it's a point of discussion that is assumed that people know about this, but Kansas City is a city and is one of the few cities that sits on a state line. In fact, you've got Kansas on one side and Missouri on the other, and one of the little quirky things about it is that people on the Kansas side view Missourians a certain way, and Missourians oftentimes will view the Kansans a certain way. It's so weird. I don't even know where this whole foundation of line of thinking came from, but there are some differences between Kansas and Missouri. In fact, I've created an entire video about the differences between the Kansas side and the Missouri side, and that will also be linked in the description if you would like to watch that as well. Now, the number 5 thing that I want to share with you about what people don't always talk about is the traffic. Now, driving here is going to be a lot easier than driving in some other cities such as Los Angeles and San Francisco and Atlanta and even Dallas. I mean, I go to Dallas because I have a daughter that lives there, and I will tell you that when I go to Dallas, it stresses me out. People there drive very aggressively, and there's way more traffic than I am used to because of the Kansas City infrastructure when it comes to the highways. But drivers here, when they do drive, it's not always aggressive. In fact, probably the most aggressive that you're going to see is when people start trying to maneuver in what we call the zipper method. Now, zipper method is something that the Missouri Department of Transportation, or MoDOT, actually recommends. And what this is when you come up onto a construction side, or when you see signs on the highway where it says to merge over. Well, the zipper method is the MoDOT organization wants everyone to go all the way up to the very end where the sign actually starts to cut off your lane, and then start to merge into the other lane like a zipper does. Well, I'm telling you what, people lose their mind if people drive up to the very end of that one lane. I mean, most of the time people are really gracious on the highways until you try doing the zipper method, and then all of a sudden people just literally get crazy. They move over into the lane, they block lanes and won't let you pass and go to the end. In fact, I have to tell you this, my husband got a ticket one day for doing that, and I kept telling him, stop, it's not wrong for you to do that. MoDOT even recommends you do it. And he's like, but it's not fair, it's not fair. I'm telling you, he did it. He blocked somebody and got a ticket for it. So the zipper method is advised, but be mindful if you are in town and you're used to that and you come from a city that the zipper method is normal, you'll come to Kansas City. It is not necessarily a favored thing. I always do the zipper method and I don't care what people think because MoDOT recommends it. So we'll see. But anyway, number 6, and this is another subject that I hope that you learn about, is the diverseness of lifestyles here. Now, I will tell you this, that living in Kansas City, it's becoming easier and easier and easier to live a healthy lifestyle. You've got all kinds of restaurants that are starting to change their menus, or even healthy restaurants seem to be becoming more popular. You've got the mix. You've got tons of smoothie shops all across the Kansas City metropolitan area. Then one of my favorite restaurants is called True Kitchen. You'll find True Kitchen on the Country Club Plaza. I love eating lunch there. It's got such a nice menu, and it includes gluten-free stuff. And if you've listened to me at all whatsoever on this channel, you know that I have to eat gluten-free, and I love finding restaurants that are just overall getting more health conscious as well. Another thing is that I also want to mention the farmers markets. The farmers markets are expanding here in the Kansas City area. In fact, the Overland Park Farmers Market is expanding so much, and it's really been ranked very high on a national level. So what they're not telling you is that Kansas City is ranked really high on the health conscious, and it's getting better when it comes to health. Now, speaking of health, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the daylight savings time, when it comes to the days, this is something that I want to talk about when it comes to mental health. One of the things that I mentioned earlier, when the days get shorter and people hunker down and they aren't motivated to get out, and it seems like kind of missing in action, it can be a little more difficult to stay with a healthier plan. And this is one of the things that I want to encourage you, if you're watching this and you have friends that live in Kansas City or in a city where it gets dark at 5:30 at night, you want to make sure that you check in with those people, because this can affect their mental health, and it can actually cause some depression as well. And so when we're talking about health, yes, Kansas City is ranking a lot higher from a health standpoint. There's a lot of restaurants that are really making sure that they have like gluten-free options and more healthy choices. But when it comes to the winter time, we really got to be intentional about making sure that we stay healthy and eat healthy and go to the gym and doing those things, because we don't want the depression to set in due to the daylight savings time. And the last thing that I want to talk about is also lifestyle related, but it's something that, is a little quirky. Not many people talk about this, but I feel like you should know that Kansas City is overall a very casual city when it comes to fashion and lifestyle, when it comes to attire. Overall, we are an extremely casual city. And I'll give you an example. There is an extremely nice steakhouse in Kansas City, and when you go to some of these restaurants and you go to these really nice events, say for like your anniversary or a birthday celebration or even prom, there are times where people will go and on prom night go to some of these really nice steak restaurants, and you might find that you're all dressed up and you are enjoying a night out on the town and you're having just a really nice overall quaint time, and then looking off to your left or to the right, somebody enjoying that same meal, they're dressed in sweats and a sweatshirt. Most of the time, your attire is allowed there. So if you think that you're underdressed for a certain restaurant or a certain event, I would call ahead of time just to confirm that they don't have a dress code, but most of the restaurants here in Kansas City don't. Now, I love fashion. I love dressing up, and sometimes I honestly will stick out because I'll have my bright yellow fur coat on or just some bright clothes or a nice dress on. I love dressing up, but I still do it because that's me and that's what I enjoy doing. And I still do it because that's what I like. But there are pockets of Kansas City that are a tad dressier than, say, other pockets, but for the most part, we are a pretty casual city. So those are 7 kind of random things that most people don't really sit at, a lunch table and have conversations about. But I really think that those are things that people would want to know, or things that are about Kansas City and our DNA here. So I hope that this helped you as you are making that decision on whether or not Kansas City is the place for you. And as always, if you need help with this, again, my email and my contact information is in the description below, as well as the link that goes right to my calendar. And in that consultation, that will be the first thing that we do, and we'll talk about your real estate goals, and we'll talk about the things that you are looking for in a city or in a community, and as well as be sure and subscribe to this channel, because I'm constantly talking about the Kansas City metropolitan area, and there might be a video that comes up that just spurs your interest, and there might even be a neighborhood that you want to go and see, and I would love to help you with that. So I'll have my email listed below. Reach out to me and we'll set up a consultation as you are considering moving here to Kansas City. And as always, go out and live your best Kansas City life.